My name is Lillian Cooper, 26 years old, and what should have been my dream come true crumbled when my business failed, just as my sister announced she was pregnant again. After 5 years of pouring my heart, soul, and every penny I had saved into my small graphic design studio, I watched it all slip away when our biggest client went bankrupt, taking my future with them. After my landlord posted the eviction notice on my apartment door, I broke down and called my older sister, Vanessa. She immediately offered her spare room, telling me, "Family always comes first, Lil. Stay as long as you need." I packed what little I had left and moved into her suburban 4-bedroom house. What I didn't realize was that Vanessa had offered me more than just a place to stay. She had a different plan altogether. The first night there was eye-opening. Vanessa had 4 children, twins Tyler and Tara, who were 8, 6-year-old Ethan, and 2-year-old Maddie. She worked night shifts at the hospital as a nurse, which meant she slept during the day and was gone all night. When I arrived, she showed me my room, introduced me to the kids, and then dropped the bomb. "The babysitter quit last week," she said, grabbing her purse. "I'm already late for work. The kids had mac and cheese for lunch, but they'll need dinner around 6. Maddie has a bedtime routine written on the fridge. The twins need to finish their homework before any screen time." Before I could process what was happening, she was out the door, leaving me standing in the living room surrounded by 4 children I barely knew. I hadn't seen my sister or her kids much in the past few years while building my business. Now, I was apparently their new caretaker. That first week was chaotic. I struggled to find a job during the day while watching Maddie, then spent evenings helping with homework, cooking dinner, breaking up fights, and handling bedtime routines. Vanessa would arrive home around 2 a.m., sleep until the older kids left for school, then sleep more until shortly before leaving for work again. We barely spoke. By the second week, I'd found a job at a local coffee shop that let me work the morning shift. I'd wake at 4 a.m., leave the house by 4:30, and Vanessa would be home with the kids until school. Then she'd sleep, and I'd return to watch Maddie after my shift ended at 1 p.m. It wasn't ideal, but it gave me some income while I applied for graphic design positions and tried to rebuild my portfolio at night after the kids were asleep. 1 month in, I was exhausted but establishing a routine. I'd signed up for online design courses that I could take in the middle of the night. I was slowly putting away money for my own place. The kids and I had developed a relationship, not quite maternal, but something between an aunt and a friend. I helped with school projects, listened to their stories, and learned their preferences. Tyler was quiet and loved drawing. Tara was outspoken and athletic. Ethan was curious about everything. And little Maddie followed me everywhere, calling me Lily because she couldn't pronounce Lillian. Then came the announcement that changed everything. We were having a rare family dinner. Vanessa had the night off. The kids were excited to have their mom at the table, talking over each other to tell her about their weeks. I was enjoying the break from being the sole adult. "I have some news," Vanessa said, waiting until the kids' chatter died down. She placed her hand on her stomach and smiled. "You're going to have a new brother or sister. I'm pregnant." The kids erupted in excitement. I forced a smile while my mind raced with questions. Vanessa was a single mom. Their father had left years ago. I'd never seen her date anyone. Who was the father? How would she manage another child with her schedule? And most importantly, what did this mean for me? After the kids went to bed, I found Vanessa in the kitchen. "Congratulations," I said, trying to sound sincere. "I didn't know you were seeing someone." She shrugged. "It's not serious. He's a doctor at the hospital. He's not really in the picture. How are you going to manage another baby? You're hardly ever home as it is." She looked at me like the answer was obvious. "That's why it's so perfect that you're here. The timing couldn't be better." My heart sank as I realized what she meant. I wasn't a temporary houseguest to her. I was the solution to her childcare problems, now and for the foreseeable future. "Vanessa, I can't stay here forever. I'm trying to rebuild my career, save for my own place." "Family helps family, Lil," she interrupted. "I took you in when you had nowhere else to go. The kids love you. And it's not like you're making enough at that coffee shop to afford your own place anyway." Her words stung because they contained some truth. I wasn't making enough yet, but I had plans, goals, dreams beyond being my sister's live-in nanny. "I'm not asking you to do this forever," she continued. "Just until the baby is a little older. Maybe a year or two." A year or two. The words echoed in my head as I went to bed that night. A year or two of putting my life on hold. A year or two of raising someone else's children while my own dreams slipped further away. I lay awake until dawn, coming to the difficult realization that something had to change. I couldn't continue down this path. My sister had made her choices, and now I needed to make mine. The next morning, I called in sick to the coffee shop. After the kids left for school and Vanessa went to sleep, I sat at the kitchen table with a notepad, calculating my finances. 6 weeks of coffee shop paychecks had given me just enough for a security deposit on the cheapest apartment I could find, but I'd need roommates or a better job to cover monthly rent. I spent hours applying for graphic design positions while Maddie napped. By the time she woke up, I had sent out 15 applications and received 2 responses scheduling interviews for the following week. It wasn't much, but it was a start. That evening, I tried to talk to Vanessa again before she left for work. The kids were in the living room watching TV, so we spoke in hushed tones in the kitchen. "I have 2 job interviews next week," I told her, "for graphic design positions." "That's great," she said, not looking up as she gathered her things for work. "As long as they're flexible with your schedule. Maddie can't go to daycare yet. It's too expensive." "Vanessa, that's what I want to talk about. I can't be your full-time childcare anymore. I need to focus on rebuilding my career." She finally looked at me, her expression hardening. "So you're just going to abandon us? After everything I've done for you?" "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm trying to get back on my feet. I appreciate you taking me in, but this arrangement isn't what I agreed to." "What arrangement?" "You were homeless. I gave you a place to stay. The least you could do is help out with the kids while you're here." "Help out, yes. Become their primary caregiver, no, that wasn't the deal." She grabbed her purse, her movements sharp with anger. "There was no deal, Lillian. This is family. We help each other. I need to go or I'll be late." She left before I could respond, the door closing firmly behind her. I stood in the kitchen, my frustration building. This was the pattern. Vanessa would shut down conversations she didn't want to have by leaving or changing the subject. There was never a resolution, just an expectation that I would fall in line. The next morning, I received an email about one of my applications. A small marketing firm needed a freelance designer for a project with potential for more work. The pay wasn't great, but it was in my field and could be done remotely. I immediately accepted and spent Maddie's nap time working on the project. For the next week, I juggled my coffee shop shifts, childcare, and the freelance project. I slept less, worked more, and slowly began to see a path forward. I went to both interviews, and while one wasn't a good fit, the other offered me part-time work that could be done remotely most days. Between that, the coffee shop, and occasional freelance work, I might be able to afford a tiny studio apartment. Then came the ultimatum. Vanessa came home early one morning, looking tired but determined. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table where I was working on my laptop. "We need to talk about your job situation," she said. "With the new baby coming, I'm going to need more help, not less." I closed my laptop, already dreading where this conversation was headed. "I understand that, but I have to focus on my career too. I've been applying for design jobs and I've found some part-time work." "That won't work for us," she said, as if it were already decided. "What I need is for you to be here full-time. I can cover the bills if you quit the coffee shop and just focus on the kids." I stared at her, unable to believe what I was hearing. "You want me to give up working altogether? To be your full-time, unpaid nanny?" "Not unpaid. You get room and board, and it's not forever, just until the baby is older." She reached across the table, touching my hand in what I'm sure she thought was a comforting gesture. "Think about it, Lil. You wouldn't have to worry about rent or bills. You'd have security." I pulled my hand away. "That's not security, Vanessa. That's dependence. I would be completely reliant on you, with no income, No career development. No future of my own. Why are you being so selfish? These are your nieces and nephews we're talking about. I love them, but they're not my responsibility. They're yours. You chose to have them. Her face hardened. And now I'm choosing to have another one. If you can't support that, maybe you should find somewhere else to live. The words hung between us, her threat clear. Support her choices, become her live-in nanny, or get out. In that moment, something inside me broke and reformed. I had spent weeks walking on eggshells, trying to balance my needs with hers, feeling guilty for wanting my own life. But I was done feeling guilty. Maybe I should, I said quietly. She looked surprised, like she hadn't expected me to call her bluff. Don't be ridiculous. Where would you go? You can barely afford your coffee shop apartment. I'll figure it out. I always do. That night, after everyone was asleep, I made calls to people I hadn't spoken to in months. Former colleagues, friends I'd lost touch with while building my business. By morning, I had a lead on a room in a shared apartment across town. It wasn't ideal. The room was tiny, the apartment was shared with 3 strangers, and the neighborhood wasn't great. But it was something. It was a step toward independence. I spent the next 2 days secretly packing what little I owned and arranging my exit. I felt guilty about leaving the kids without saying goodbye properly, but I knew Vanessa would make it impossible if she knew my plans in advance. I waited until Vanessa left for work, wrote a note explaining that I needed to build my own life, and called a rideshare. As I loaded my bags into the car, I heard a small voice behind me. "Lily, where are you going?" I turned to find Maddie standing in the doorway in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed rabbit. My heart broke a little at the confusion in her eyes. "I'm going to my new home, sweetie," I said, kneeling down to Maddie's level. The rideshare driver waited patiently as I tried to find the right words to explain to a 2-year-old why I was leaving. "I come too?" she asked, her bottom lip trembling. "No, honey. You stay here with your mommy and your brothers and sister." I stroked her hair, fighting back tears. "But I'll visit you, okay? I promise." I hadn't planned on making that promise. In fact, I'd considered making a clean break. But looking into her innocent eyes, I couldn't bring myself to disappear from her life completely. I helped her back inside and made sure she was settled with the teenage neighbor who was watching the kids until Vanessa got home. Then I left, a mixture of guilt, relief, and anxiety swirling in my stomach. My new room was exactly as advertised, small, with just enough space for a twin bed and a desk. My roommates were 3 graduate students who were rarely home, which suited me fine. I spent the next few days settling in, working extra shifts at the coffee shop, and continuing my freelance design work. 3 days after I left, the text started. "How could you abandon us like this?" Vanessa wrote. "The kids are devastated. Maddie keeps asking for you." I didn't respond. "This is so irresponsible. You didn't even give me time to find someone else to watch the kids." Again, I didn't engage. "Mom is furious with you. She says you're being selfish and ungrateful." That one stung. Our mother had always favored Vanessa, the responsible one who gave her grandchildren over me, the dreamer who pursued a risky career. But I held firm, focusing instead on building my new life. A week after I moved out, Vanessa escalated. She showed up at the coffee shop during my shift, Maddie in tow. Seeing the toddler's face light up when she spotted me was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. "Lily!" she squealed, breaking free from Vanessa's hand and running toward me. I caught her in a hug, inhaling the familiar scent of her baby shampoo. "I need to talk to you," Vanessa said, her voice tight. My manager gave me a questioning look, and I nodded. "I'll take my break now." We sat at a corner table, Maddie happily coloring with crayons I grabbed from behind the counter. "You need to come home," Vanessa said without preamble. "This little stunt has gone on long enough." "It's not a stunt, Vanessa. I'm rebuilding my life. By abandoning your family, by making my children cry themselves to sleep?" I winced at the emotional manipulation, but held my ground. "I'm not abandoning anyone. I just need my own space, my own life. The kids miss you. I need help. I'm pregnant. working night shifts, and now I have to pay for childcare. She reached across the table, lowering her voice. Mom said you can have the basement to yourself if you come back. More privacy. I shook my head. This isn't about having my own room. It's about having my own life. I was becoming a full-time unpaid nanny, and that's not what I want. So what do you want? To make minimum wage serving coffee while living in some sketchy apartment with strangers. That's a step up? It's a step toward independence. I have 2 design clients now, and I'm interviewing for a part-time position at a marketing firm next week. She scoffed. And when that falls through like your business did? What then? Her words were designed to hurt, to make me doubt myself. And they did sting, but they also reinforced my decision to leave. Then I'll try something else, but I'll be making my own choices. Fine. Be selfish. She stood up, grabbing Maddie's hand. Say goodbye to Aunt Lillian. She doesn't want to see you anymore. That's not true, and you know it, I said, my voice shaking with anger. Don't use her to manipulate me. Maddie looked between us, her little face crumpling in confusion. I knelt down and gave her a quick hug. I'll see you soon, okay? I promise. As they left, I noticed my coworkers staring. I'd never mentioned my family drama at work, but now it had followed me here. I finished my shift with burning cheeks, then went home and cried for the first time since leaving Vanessa's house. The next day, I received a text from Tyler, my 8-year-old nephew, sent from Vanessa's phone. Aunt Lily, why did you leave? Mom says you're mad at us. Did we do something bad? The message broke my heart. I called immediately, hoping Vanessa would let me speak to the kids. To my surprise, she did. I spoke to each of them, explaining in age-appropriate terms that I wasn't mad at them, that I loved them very much, but that grown-ups sometimes need to live in different houses. I promised to visit soon and maybe take them to the park if their mom allowed it. When Vanessa got back on the phone, her tone was slightly less hostile. They miss you, she said. And I could really use the help. The morning sickness is brutal this time. I'm sorry you're feeling sick, I said. And I meant it. But I can't move back in. I can visit, though. Maybe take the kids for an afternoon this weekend to give you a break. There was a long pause. Fine, she finally said. Saturday. But this doesn't mean I approve of what you did. That Saturday was the first of many visits. I'd take the kids to the park, or for ice cream, or to the library. I'd help with homework and listen to their stories. For a few hours each week, I was their aunt again, not their caregiver. And it was better that way. I could be fully present, fully engaged, because I knew it was temporary. Vanessa and I maintained a strained politeness around each other. She never apologized for trying to force me into becoming her full-time nanny, and I never apologized for leaving. But we found a new equilibrium, a way to stay in each other's lives without living under the same roof. Then, at 15 weeks pregnant, Vanessa started bleeding. The call came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. I fumbled for my phone in the dark, my heart racing when I saw Vanessa's name on the screen. I'm at the hospital, she said, her voice tight with fear. There's something wrong with the baby. The kids are home with a neighbor, but she has to leave for work at 6. Can you come? I was in a rideshare within 10 minutes, heading to Vanessa's house first to relieve the neighbor. When I arrived, the kids were still asleep, unaware of the drama unfolding. I thanked the neighbor, made coffee, and waited anxiously for updates from the hospital. When the kids woke up, I tried to keep the morning routine as normal as possible while fielding their questions about where their mother was. Mom's not feeling well, so she went to see a doctor, I explained, helping Maddie with her breakfast. I'm going to take you to school today and then I'll check on her. Is it the baby? Tara asked, always perceptive. Is something wrong with our brother or sister? I hesitated, not wanting to lie but also not wanting to frighten them. The doctors are helping your mom and the baby. That's all I know right now. After dropping the older kids at school and taking Maddie to a neighbor who had agreed to watch her, I headed to the hospital. I found Vanessa in a hospital bed looking pale and exhausted. What happened? I asked, sitting beside her. Placental abruption, she said, her voice hollow. The placenta started to separate from the uterine wall. They stopped the bleeding, but I'm on strict bed rest for the rest of the pregnancy. If it happens again—" She trailed off, tears filling her eyes. I took her hand, our recent conflicts temporarily forgotten in the face of this crisis. "The baby's okay for now?" She nodded. "For now. But I can't work. I can't take care of the kids. I don't know what I'm going to do." The implication was clear, but this time it wasn't a manipulation tactic. It was a genuine crisis. "I'll help," I said, surprising myself. "Not by moving back in permanently, but I'll figure something out. We'll get through this." The relief on her face was palpable. "Thank you." For the next week, I practically lived at Vanessa's house again, juggling my coffee shop shifts, freelance work, and childcare. I slept on her couch, woke early to get the kids ready for school, worked on my laptop during the day while watching Maddie, picked up the older kids, made dinner, supervised homework, and handled bedtime. It was exhausting, but it was temporary. Vanessa needed me, and despite our differences, she was still my sister. During that week, I had my interview at the marketing firm. They offered me the position, 25 hours a week, most of which could be done remotely, with benefits after 3 months. It was a stepping stone, not my dream job, but it was in my field and paid better than the coffee shop. I accepted. As Vanessa's condition stabilized and we fell into a routine, we started having real conversations again. Late one night, after the kids were asleep and I was working on a design project at her kitchen table, she brought up what had happened between us. "I took advantage of you," she said quietly. "I didn't mean to at first, but it was so easy. You needed a place to stay. I needed help with the kids. It seemed perfect." I looked up from my laptop, surprised by her admission. "You did take advantage. But I let you. I felt like I owed you for taking me in when my business failed. You don't owe me anything. We're sisters." She sighed, rubbing her pregnant belly absently. "I was wrong to try to force you to give up your life for mine. I was desperate, but that's no excuse." It wasn't a full apology, but it was more acknowledgement than I'd expected. "I never meant to abandon the kids," I said. "That's why I left the way I did. I knew if I told you, you'd make it impossible, use them to make me stay." She didn't deny it. "What are we going to do now?" "The doctor says I'll be on bed rest until the baby comes. Maybe longer. I can't work. My short-term disability will cover some expenses, but not all of them. We'll figure it out," I said. "I'm not moving back permanently, but I can stay until you're back on your feet. And I can help with bills now that I have the marketing job." We worked out a compromise. I would stay at Vanessa's house 5 nights a week to help with the kids and spend my weekends at my own apartment. I would contribute to groceries and utilities but not pay rent. And in return, I would have evenings free for my design work after the kids went to bed. Vanessa would handle the kids' needs during the day as much as she could from her bed, and I would take over mornings, evenings, and nights. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than before. I had boundaries, an end date, and my independence. Vanessa had the help she needed without expecting me to sacrifice my future. For 2 months, we made it work. The kids adjusted to the new routine. I balanced my coffee shop job, my marketing position, and my freelance clients. Vanessa's health remained stable, though she was desperately bored confined to her bed. Then the father of Vanessa's baby finally made an appearance. Dr. Andrew Collins was tall, handsome, and clearly uncomfortable with the situation. He came to the house one evening, standing awkwardly in the living room as the kids stared at him with curious eyes. "So you're the one," I said, not bothering to hide my disapproval. "Nice of you to show up." "Lillian," Vanessa warned from her spot on the couch. She turned to Andrew with a forced smile. "The kids are having dinner. Would you like to join them?" He shook his head. "I can't stay long. I just wanted to see how you were doing." He handed her an envelope. "For expenses." Money. He was paying her off. "We need to talk," Vanessa said to him. "Privately." I took the hint and herded the kids back to the kitchen to finish their dinner, but I could still hear their conversation from the hallway. "You said you were on birth control," he hissed. "And you said you were separated from your wife," Vanessa replied. "Guess we both lied." I winced. So that was the situation. A married doctor, an affair, An unplanned pregnancy. Classic. I can't be involved, he said. Financially, yes, but nothing more. My wife can't find out about this. I'm not asking you to leave your wife. I'm doing this on my own. But these kids deserve to know their father. That's not possible. I'm sorry. He left soon after, another envelope of cash on the coffee table. Vanessa didn't cry, but the tightness around her mouth told me she was hurting. So, that's the baby's father, I said when I returned to the living room. Yep. Dr. Andrew Collins, chief of surgery, married with 2 perfect children in private school. Her laugh was bitter. I knew he was married. I'm not proud of it, but I knew. He told me they were separated, filing for divorce. I believed what I wanted to believe. Annie sat beside her on the couch. Are you okay? She shrugged. I have to be. 5 kids, no partner, no job right now. I don't have the luxury of falling apart. In that moment, I saw my sister clearly, perhaps for the first time in years. She was flawed, sometimes selfish, often stubborn. But she was also strong, resilient, and doing the best she could with the choices she'd made. I didn't agree with all those choices, but I could respect her determination to face their consequences. You're not alone, I said. You have me. Not as a full-time nanny, but as a sister. There's a difference. She smiled weakly. I'm starting to see that. As Vanessa's pregnancy progressed, we settled into an uneasy truce. I maintained my boundaries, returning to my apartment on weekends and focusing on my design work in the evenings. She respected those boundaries, no longer guilting me about wanting my own life. The kids thrived with the stability of our arrangement, and for a while, things were almost peaceful. Then, at 32 weeks, Vanessa's water broke. It happened in the middle of the night. I woke to her calling my name from her bedroom, her voice tight with panic. When I rushed in, she was sitting up in bed, the sheets soaked beneath her. It's too early, she kept saying as I helped her to the car. The baby's not ready. I called her doctor from the car, then a neighbor to stay with the kids. By the time we reached the hospital, Vanessa was having contractions every few minutes. Everything happened quickly after that. Doctors and nurses swarmed around her, talking about steroids for the baby's lungs, trying to stop the labor, preparing for a premature delivery. I stood in the corner of the room, feeling helpless and afraid for my sister and her unborn child. They managed to delay the delivery for 48 hours, long enough for the steroids to help mature the baby's lungs. During that time, I shuttled between the hospital and the house, caring for the kids, reassuring them, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. On the 3rd day, baby Noah was born via emergency C-section, weighing just over 4 pounds. He was immediately taken to the NICU, a tiny bundle of tubes and monitors. Vanessa was too weak from the surgery to see him right away, so I was the first to visit him. Looking down at my newest nephew, so fragile yet fighting so hard to survive, something shifted inside me. I had resented the idea of this baby, seen him as another burden, another way Vanessa was complicating her life, and by extension, mine. But now, watching his tiny chest rise and fall, I felt only love and a fierce protectiveness. Vanessa was released from the hospital after 5 days, but Noah remained in the NICU. She was devastated to leave without him, but the doctors assured her he was getting stronger every day. Still, the separation took a toll on her physically and emotionally. Once again, our roles shifted. Vanessa was recovering from major surgery and needed help herself. She couldn't drive to the hospital to see Noah, couldn't lift Maddie, could barely manage stairs. The older kids were worried and confused, acting out in ways they never had before. I took family leave from the coffee shop and reduced my hours at the marketing firm. My freelance clients were understanding, but I knew I was risking my professional progress. Still, there was no other option. My sister and her children needed me. Dr. Collins made one appearance at the hospital, standing awkwardly at the NICU window, looking at his son from a distance. He brought another envelope of cash and left within 15 minutes. Vanessa watched him go with a resigned expression. He's never going to be involved, is he? I asked after he left. No. His wife found out about the pregnancy. They're in counseling, trying to save their marriage. She sighed. I can't even be angry anymore. I knew what I was getting into. 2 weeks after Noah's birth, he was strong enough to come home. The house transformed again. Bottles sterilizing, premature baby clothes drying on racks, the constant hum of the monitor tracking his breathing and heart rate. The older kids tiptoed around, both curious about and intimidated by their tiny new brother. I was exhausted. Between caring for a premature newborn, helping 4 other children, supporting my recovering sister, and trying to maintain some of my professional commitments, I was running on empty. Something had to give. One evening, after finally getting Noah settled and the other kids in bed, I found Vanessa crying softly in the living room. "What's wrong?" I asked, sitting beside her. "Is it the pain? Should I call the doctor?" She shook her head. "It's not the physical pain. It's everything. I've made such a mess of things, Lil. 5 kids with no father. A job I can't return to for months. Bills piling up." She wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand. "And you. I've completely derailed your life again." "You haven't derailed it," I said, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. "I chose to help. But for how long? You can't put your life on hold forever. And I can't expect you to." We sat in silence for a moment, both acknowledging the impossible situation. "What if I moved back to Mom and Dad's?" she finally said. "They've been asking. They have the space. And Mom could help with the kids while I recover." Our parents lived in Florida, having retired there 2 years earlier. They had a large house with plenty of room for Vanessa and the children. "Would you want that?" I asked, surprised by the suggestion. Vanessa had always valued her independence as much as I valued mine. "Want? No. But need? Maybe." She sighed. "At least until I can work again, get back on my feet. The cost of living is lower there and the kids would have their grandparents." "What about your job here?" "I can find another nursing position in Florida. Or maybe switch to day shifts, at least until the kids are older." She looked at me. "What do you think?" What did I think? Part of me, the selfish part, was relieved at the prospect of Vanessa and the kids moving away. I could reclaim my life fully, focus on my career without the constant pull of family obligations. But another part of me would miss them terribly, especially now that we'd established a healthier relationship. "I think you need to do what's best for you and the kids," I said carefully. "If that means moving to Florida, I'll support you. But don't do it just to free me from responsibility. It's not just that. It's practical. I can't afford this house on my own anymore. The medical bills are piling up even with insurance, and the kids need stability, which I can't provide right now." She took my hand. "But I'll miss you. We all will." The decision wasn't made that night, but the seed was planted. Over the next few weeks, as Noah grew stronger and Vanessa's recovery progressed, the idea took root. Our parents were thrilled at the prospect of having their daughter and grandchildren nearby. They offered to help with the down payment on a smaller house near them, to watch the kids while Vanessa worked, to be the support system she desperately needed. For me, the impending change brought mixed emotions. Relief, yes, but also guilt, and a strange sense of loss. I had spent months resenting the responsibility thrust upon me. Yet now that it was being lifted, I felt adrift. One night, as I helped Tyler with his science project, a solar system model that had taken over the dining room table, he asked the question I'd been dreading. "If we move to Florida, will we still see you, Aunt Lillian?" I looked up from the Jupiter we were painting, meeting his serious gaze. "Of course you will. I'll visit, and you can come visit me. We'll video chat all the time. But it won't be the same," he said with the brutal honesty of an 8-year-old. "You won't be here every day." "No," I admitted. "It won't be the same. But different doesn't have to be bad. And I'll always be your aunt, no matter where you live." He nodded, returning to his planet painting. But his question lingered in my mind. How would my relationship with the kids change once they moved? Would I become just a distant relative? Someone they saw on holidays and occasional visits? The thought bothered me more than I expected. Despite everything, despite the resentment and frustration, I loved these children. They had become a significant part of my life, and I of theirs. As Vanessa's plans to move solidified, I found myself spending more quality time with each of the kids. I took Tyler to a science museum, had a spa day at home with Tara, built a massive Lego structure with Ethan, and spent hours reading to Maddie. I even volunteered for middle-of-the-night feedings with Noah, holding his tiny body against my chest as he drank from his bottle, memorizing the contours of his face. The moving date was set for 3 weeks after Noah's 2-month checkup, assuming he was strong enough to travel. I helped Vanessa sort through belongings, pack boxes, and research the new area. I connected with a real estate agent in Florida, helped her apply for nursing positions at hospitals near our parents' home, and found schools for the older kids. Through it all, a plan of my own was forming. I didn't want to lose touch with the children I'd grown to love so deeply, and I didn't want to completely sever the fragile new relationship I was building with my sister. 2 days before they were scheduled to leave, I shared my idea with Vanessa. "I've been thinking," I said as we taped up boxes in the living room. "What if I came down to Florida for a week each month? I could work remotely, spend time with the kids, help you get settled." She looked up, surprised. "You'd do that? What about your apartment, your jobs?" "I've talked to my boss at the marketing firm. They're fine with me working remotely part of the month. I've already given notice at the coffee shop. And my roommates are cool with me keeping my room while paying reduced rent for the times I'm away. But the cost of traveling that often, I've been saving. And my freelance work is picking up. I landed 2 new clients last month. I folded a flap of cardboard over a box of toys. I want to stay involved in the kids' lives, Vanessa, and yours. We've come too far to go back to just holiday phone calls." Her eyes welled with tears. "I'd like that. The kids would love it." The day of their departure was emotional. The house that had been full of noise and chaos for months was now empty, echoing with memories. The kids clung to me, even the older ones, extracting promises that I would visit soon. 2 weeks, I assured them. "I'll be there in 2 weeks for Thanksgiving, and I'll call every day until then." As they drove away, following the moving truck to their new life in Florida, I felt both loss and liberation. The weight of constant responsibility lifted, replaced by a different kind of commitment, one I had chosen freely. I threw myself into my work during those 2 weeks, making up for lost time. I deep-cleaned my tiny apartment, reconnected with friends I'd neglected, and slept uninterrupted for the first time in months. But I also missed the chaos, the sticky hugs, the bedtime stories. I missed being needed, being important to someone other than myself. It was a strange contradiction, wanting freedom and connection simultaneously. True to my word, I flew to Florida for Thanksgiving. The kids greeted me at the airport like I'd been gone for years instead of weeks, talking over each other to tell me about their new house, new schools, new friends. Noah had grown, his premature frailty giving way to healthy baby chub. Vanessa looked better than I'd seen her in months. The stress lines around her eyes had softened. Her smile came more easily. Our parents had stepped into their grandparent roles with enthusiasm, providing the support system she needed. "You seem happy," I said when we finally had a moment alone, sitting on the patio of her new house while the kids played in the fenced backyard. "I am," she admitted. "It's not what I planned, moving back near mom and dad at 34 with 5 kids. But it's working. The kids are adjusting well. I have an interview at the hospital next week, and I'm not doing it all alone anymore." "You never should have been doing it all alone," I said. "That was the problem." She nodded. "I see that now. I was trying to prove I could handle everything myself, that I didn't need help. But everyone needs help sometimes. Even stubborn older sisters?" I teased. "Especially stubborn older sisters," she smiled. "What about you? Enjoying your freedom?" "I am," I said honestly. "I'm picking up more design work, building my portfolio again. My apartment is quiet, too quiet sometimes. But it's mine. Do you regret helping us? Being there after Noah was born?" I considered the question seriously. No. It was hard, and there were moments I resented it. But I don't regret it. Those months with the kids, with you, they changed me. made me realize I can be independent without being isolated. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the children play. It wasn't a perfect solution. The monthly visits would be expensive and exhausting. Balancing work and family across states would be challenging. But it was a choice we'd made together, a compromise that respected both our needs. I stayed for 5 days, helping Vanessa finish unpacking, taking the kids on adventures to their new local spots, getting to know their routines. When it was time to leave, the goodbyes were tearful, but not desperate. We all knew I'd be back in 3 weeks for Christmas. On the flight home, I reflected on the journey of the past year. My business had failed. I'd lost my apartment. I'd become an unexpected caregiver. I'd found my voice. I'd rebuilt my career. I'd discovered new depths to my relationship with my sister and her children. None of it had gone according to plan. But somehow, I'd ended up exactly where I needed to be. Winter turned to spring, and our new arrangement settled into a rhythm. I flew to Florida once a month, staying for a week in Vanessa's guest room that the kids had decorated with artwork and photos. Between visits, we video chatted almost daily, with the children taking turns telling me about their lives. My career was flourishing. The part-time marketing position had evolved into a full-time role with more responsibility and better pay. My freelance client list had grown to the point where I was turning down projects. I'd moved from the shared apartment to a small but charming studio of my own, decorated with bright colors and filled with plants. Vanessa, too, was thriving in her new life. She'd secured a nursing position with regular day shifts, allowing her to be home with the kids in the evenings. Our parents helped with after-school care and weekend activities. Dr. Collins continued to send monthly support checks, but remained otherwise absent from Noah's life. The children were blossoming. Tyler had joined a science club and was building robots. Tara was the star of her soccer team. Ethan had overcome his reading struggles with the help of a tutor. Maddie was talking in full sentences and developing a strong personality. And Noah, now 10 months old, was crawling everywhere, showing no lingering effects from his premature birth. During one of my monthly visits in April, Vanessa and I sat on her patio after the kids were in bed, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the Florida sunset. "I've been thinking about what you said last year," she said, swirling the wine in her glass. "About making my own choices and facing the consequences." "Oh?" I was curious where this was going. "You were right. I made choices, having 5 kids, getting involved with a married man, expecting you to put your life on hold for mine. Some of those choices were selfish." "We're all selfish sometimes," I said diplomatically. "True, but there's a difference between healthy selfishness and whatever I was doing." She took a sip of wine. "Anyway, I've been working on making better choices, setting better examples for the kids. I've noticed, you seem more centered." She smiled. "That's a good word for it. I feel more centered, more intentional about my life." She hesitated, then added, "I've also been seeing someone." This was news. "Really? Who?" "His name is Paul. He's a pediatric nurse at the hospital. His daughter is in Tara's class." Her cheeks flushed slightly. "It's very new, very casual. But he's kind, responsible, divorced, co-parents well with his ex. The opposite of Andrew in every way." "Have the kids met him?" "Not as someone I'm dating, just as Sophia's dad. I'm taking it slow, being careful." She looked at me seriously. "I don't want to bring someone into their lives unless I'm sure." I was impressed by her caution, so different from her impulsivity of the past. "That's wise. So, tell me more about this Paul." As she described him, his devotion to his daughter, his passion for pediatric nursing, his terrible dad jokes, I could see the genuine happiness in her eyes. This wasn't the reckless infatuation she'd had with Dr. Collins. This was something steadier, healthier. "I'm happy for you," I said, and meant it. "You deserve someone good in your life." "What about you?" she asked. "Anyone special back in the city?" I shook my head. "Not really. I've been on a few dates, but nothing serious. I'm focused on my career right now, rebuilding what I lost." "And on us," she added. "On the kids. Don't think I don't know what these monthly trips cost you. In money, in time, in career opportunities. They're worth it, I said simply. The kids are worth it. You're worth it. The next morning, as I was helping the twins with a school project at the kitchen table, my phone rang. It was my boss from the marketing firm. "Lillian, I need you back in the office by Monday," he said without preamble. "The Westridge account is in crisis mode, and they're demanding our best designer. That's you." "But I'm in Florida until Wednesday," I reminded him. "My flight back isn't until Tuesday night. Can you change it? This is big, Lillian. Career-changing big. Westridge is our largest client, and they specifically asked for you to handle the emergency rebrand." I looked at the kids, absorbed in their project, unaware that my professional life was colliding with my personal commitments. "Let me see what I can do," I said, stepping onto the patio for privacy. "What exactly does Westridge need?" As my boss outlined the crisis, a competitor had launched a nearly identical brand campaign, forcing Westridge to completely overhaul their marketing materials in less than a week. My heart sank. This was exactly the kind of high-profile project I'd been working toward. A successful handling of this crisis could lead to a promotion, maybe even a creative director position eventually. But it would mean cutting my visit short, disappointing the kids, leaving Vanessa in the lurch. I'd promised to take the twins to their science fair on Monday, to attend Ethan's parent-teacher conference on Tuesday. When I hung up, I sat on the patio swing, weighing my options. My career or my family commitments. The choice I'd been avoiding for months had finally arrived in the form of an emergency client call. Vanessa found me there, still contemplating. "Work emergency?" she guessed, sitting beside me. I nodded, explaining the situation. "You have to go," she said immediately. "This is the opportunity you've been working toward." "But I promised the kids, the science fair, Ethan's conference." "They'll understand. We'll reschedule the conference. I'll take time off for the science fair." She squeezed my hand. "Lil, this is your career, your future. Don't sacrifice it for us." "But that's the whole point of these visits, to be present, to be involved." "And you are. Missing one event doesn't change that." She looked at me seriously. "Remember what you told me? About needing to build your own life? This is part of that. The kids and I will still be here. Your shot at the Westridge account might not be." Her understanding made the decision both easier and harder. Easier because I had her blessing. Harder because I knew how much my presence meant to the kids. In the end, I changed my flight to that evening. The goodbyes were rushed and emotional. Tyler tried to hide his disappointment about the science fair. Maddie clung to my legs, not understanding why I was leaving early. I promised extra video calls, special activities during my next visit, small consolations that felt inadequate. On the flight home, I worked on preliminary concepts for the Westridge rebrand, pushing aside the guilt with professional focus. By the time we landed, I had a solid direction for the campaign. The next week was a blur of meetings, design sessions, and late nights at the office. The Westridge team loved my concepts, and we launched the rebrand ahead of schedule to rave reviews. My boss was thrilled, hinting at a promotion in my near future. I kept my promise to the kids, video chatting every night despite my exhaustion. I listened to Tyler describe the science fair in detail, praising the robot he and his partner had built. I heard about Ethan's parent-teacher conference, where his reading improvements had been celebrated. I watched Maddie show me her new dance moves, and Noah trying to pull himself up to standing. But it wasn't the same as being there, and we all knew it. When I flew down for my next monthly visit in May, there was a subtle shift in the dynamics. The kids were more reserved at first, as if testing whether I was still fully invested in their lives. Maddie took longer to warm up to me. Tyler didn't immediately share his latest science project. It hurt, but I understood. They were protecting themselves from disappointment. Trust, once compromised, takes time to rebuild, even with children, perhaps especially with children. By the second day, things had mostly returned to normal. But the experience left me wondering about the sustainability of our arrangement. How many times could I cancel plans, leave early, or prioritize work before permanently damaging my relationship with the kids? How many opportunities could I pass up before resenting the constraints my family commitments placed on my career? There was no easy answer, no perfect balance to strike, just a series of choices, each with its own set of consequences. On my last evening of that visit, Vanessa and I sat on the patio again, our ritual debrief time. "Paul wants to meet you," she said casually. "Properly, I mean, as someone I'm dating." "That sounds serious," I observed. She nodded. "It's getting there. He's met the kids now, officially as someone special to me, not just Sophia's dad. They like him. He's good with them. And how do you feel about him?" A smile spread across her face, genuine and warm. "Happy, secure. He's solid, Lil. Not exciting in a dangerous way like Andrew, but exciting in a good way. He makes me laugh. He respects my boundaries. He understands the kids come first." "He sounds perfect," I said, genuinely pleased for her. "Not perfect, but right." She hesitated. "There's something else. He's asked us to move in with him. His house is bigger, in a better school district. The kids would each have their own room." Wow, that is serious. I tried to process this development. "What did you say?" "That I needed to think about it. Talk to the kids. Talk to you." She looked at me intently. "It would change things, Lil. Your visits, the arrangement we have." I nodded, understanding the implications. If Vanessa and the kids moved in with Paul, I would be visiting not just my sister and nieces and nephews, but her boyfriend's home. The dynamics would shift. I would become more of an outsider, less central to their daily lives. "Are you asking for my permission?" I asked gently. "No, I'm asking for your thoughts. Your feelings matter to me, Lil. To all of us." I considered my response carefully. "If he makes you happy, if he's good to the kids, then I think you should consider it seriously. Don't hold back because of me or our arrangement. We'll adapt." "You're sure?" "Because I know how much these visits mean to you." "They mean everything," I admitted. "But so does your happiness, the kids' happiness. If Paul can be part of that, then I'm all for it." She hugged me then, tight and grateful. "I love you, you know. Even when I was being a terrible sister, I loved you." "I know. I love you too." I pulled back to look at her. "So when do I get to meet this paragon of male virtue? Dinner tomorrow before you leave? He could bring Sophia, make it casual." I agreed. And the next day, I met the man who might become part of our extended family. Paul was exactly as Vanessa had described. Kind, steady, with a quiet humor that complemented her more exuberant personality. His daughter Sophia was a confident 9-year-old who clearly adored her father and got along well with all of Vanessa's children. Watching them together, Paul, Vanessa, and the blend of their children, I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Joy for my sister finding a partner who valued her. Satisfaction that the kids had a positive male role model. But also a twinge of something like exclusion, a reminder that life moved forward, relationships evolved, and my place in their world was changing once again. As I boarded my flight back to the city that evening, I reflected on the constant state of adjustment that had defined the past year and a half. My business had failed, forcing me to rebuild. My role as aunt had expanded to caregiver, then contracted to monthly visitor. Now it was shifting again as Vanessa's life expanded to include Paul. Nothing stayed the same. The only constant was change itself, and the choices we made in response to it. Aqui estão os capítulos 7 e 8 reescritos de forma mais condensada. Winter turned to spring, and our new arrangement settled into a rhythm. I flew to Florida once a month, staying for a week in Vanessa's guest room decorated with artwork from the kids. Between visits, we video chatted almost daily, with the children taking turns telling me about their lives. My career was flourishing. The part-time marketing position had evolved into a full-time role with better pay. My freelance client list had grown significantly. I'd moved from the shared apartment to a small but charming studio of my own. Vanessa was thriving in her new life in Florida. She'd secured a nursing position with regular day shifts, allowing her to be home with the kids in the evenings. Our parents helped with after-school care. Dr. Collins continued to send monthly support checks, but remained absent from Noah's life. During one of my monthly visits in April, Vanessa revealed she was seeing someone. His name is Paul. He's a pediatric nurse at the hospital. His daughter is in Tara's class, she explained. It's very new, very casual, but he's kind, responsible, divorced, co-parents well with his ex. I was impressed by her caution with this relationship, so different from her past impulsivity. A week later, my boss called with an emergency. "Lillian, I need you back in the office by Monday," he said. "The Westridge account is in crisis mode, and they're demanding our best designer. That's you." I was in Florida, having promised to take the twins to their science fair on Monday and attend Ethan's parent-teacher conference on Tuesday. Vanessa encouraged me to go. "This is your career, your future. Don't sacrifice it for us." I changed my flight to that evening. The goodbyes were rushed and emotional. Tyler tried to hide his disappointment. Maddie clung to my legs, not understanding why I was leaving early. The next week was a blur of meetings and late nights. The Westridge team loved my concepts, and we launched the rebrand to rave reviews. My boss hinted at a promotion. I kept my promise to video chat with the kids every night despite my exhaustion. But it wasn't the same as being there, and we all knew it. When I flew down for my next visit, there was a subtle shift. The kids were more reserved at first, as if testing whether I was still fully invested. It hurt, but I understood. Trust, once compromised, takes time to rebuild. By the second day, things returned to normal. But the experience left me wondering about the sustainability of our arrangement. How many times could I cancel plans before permanently damaging my relationship with the kids? On my last evening, Vanessa mentioned that Paul wanted to meet me officially. Then she dropped bigger news. He's asked us to move in with him. His house is bigger, in a better school district. I considered this development. If they moved in with Paul, I would be visiting not just my sister and her children, but her boyfriend's home. I would become more of an outsider. If he makes you happy, if he's good to the kids, then you should consider it seriously, I told her. Don't hold back because of me. We'll adapt. The next day, I met Paul. Kind, steady, with a quiet humor that complemented Vanessa's more exuberant personality. His daughter Sophia clearly adored her father and got along well with all of Vanessa's children. Watching them together, I felt joy for my sister finding a good partner, but also a twinge of exclusion. My place in their world was changing once again. By August, Vanessa and the kids had moved in with Paul and Sophia. Their new house was beautiful. A ranch-style home with a pool, enough bedrooms that even the twins no longer had to share. During my August visit, Paul and Vanessa announced their engagement. The kids were thrilled. "We're thinking of a small ceremony in November," Vanessa told me. "Nothing elaborate, just family and close friends in the backyard here." That night, after the children were in bed, Paul asked about my future plans. The question caught me off guard. What were my plans? For the past year and a half, I'd been reacting to circumstances, but I hadn't really looked beyond that. On the flight home, I made a decision. It was time to focus on building my own future with the same intentionality that Vanessa was building hers. I accepted the promotion to creative director. I began looking for a larger apartment. I reconnected with old friends and joined professional groups. Most significantly, I started developing a business plan for my own design studio, a dream I'd put on hold after my first failure. The wedding was small and perfect, held in their backyard on a November afternoon. The children were integral to the ceremony. As maid of honor, I stood beside my sister, watching her exchange vows with a man who truly loved her and her children. "Thank you," Vanessa said later, "for everything, for being here today, for helping with the kids all these months, for forgiving me when I was at my worst." "That's what sisters do," I replied, smoothing Noah's hair. "We fight, we forgive, we move forward." 6 months after Vanessa's wedding, I stood in my new office space, a converted loft with large windows flooding the room with light. It was nothing like my first studio. More modest in size, more focused in purpose, built on experience rather than just dreams. Today was the official launch of Cooper Design Studio, my second attempt at entrepreneurship. This time, I had 3 solid clients already signed, a professional business plan, and the security of part-time work at the marketing firm for the first 6 months. My phone buzzed with an incoming video call. Vanessa and the kids. "Aunt Lillian!" came the chorus of voices as 5 excited faces crowded into the frame. Even Noah waved enthusiastically. We chatted for a few minutes before the kids wandered off, leaving just Vanessa on the screen. She looked relaxed and happy, her hair shorter now, her smile easier. "The office looks amazing, Lil. Professional but creative. Very you." "Thanks. It's still a work in progress, but it feels right this time." After we hung up, I sat at my new desk, reflecting on the contrast between this moment and where I'd been 2 years ago. Then, I had been desperate, homeless. Now, I was launching a business with careful planning, maintaining a healthy relationship with my sister and her children. That evening, Vanessa called again. "Paul and I are having a baby," she announced, her voice tight with excitement. "Congratulations! When are you due?" "December. We just found out." She paused. "I wanted to ask you something. Will you be the godmother?" The request touched me deeply. I'd be honored. The following month, during my visit to Florida, Paul and Vanessa shared their plans for the future. A bigger house, career advancements, all thoughtful steps toward providing the best life for their growing family. "What about you, Aunt Lillian?" Tyler asked. "Are you going to move to Florida too someday?" The question caught me off guard. "I don't know, buddy. My business is in the city, but I'll always visit." "But not as much as before," Tara noted sadly. "You used to stay for a whole week. Now it's just weekends." It was true. As my business had grown, my visits had necessarily shortened. "That doesn't mean I love you any less," I assured them. "It just means I'm building something important, like your mom and Paul are doing here." The months that followed were a whirlwind of activity. My business grew steadily. I hired my first employee. My monthly visits to Florida continued, though sometimes work obligations forced me to shorten them. In November, as Vanessa entered her 3rd trimester, I took a long weekend to help prepare the nursery. "We decided on a name," Vanessa told me. "If it's a girl, Lily, after you." The gesture brought tears to my eyes. "Really? Really, you've been such an important part of our lives." December arrived, bringing with it the anticipated birth. I was in a client meeting when Paul called. "It's time," he said simply. I was on a plane within hours, arriving at the hospital just as Lily Grace Mitchell entered the world, 7 pounds, 8 ounces, with her mother's determined chin. Standing in the hospital room, watching Vanessa with her newborn daughter, surrounded by her other 5 children and her husband, I felt a sense of completion. The circle that had begun with crisis had transformed into something beautiful. 2 days later, Vanessa asked if I'd considered moving to Florida eventually. The seed was planted, and over the next few months, it grew in my mind. Could I relocate my business? Would being closer to them enrich my life in ways that compensated for the professional challenges? 1 year after Lily's birth, during my December visit, I shared my thoughts. "I'm considering relocating, moving the business here." Vanessa tried to contain her excitement. "Really? You're serious?" "I'm exploring the possibility. It would be a big change, a big risk. But I think it might be the right move." I watched as Noah helped Lily toddle across the grass. I've missed so much of their growing up. 6 months later, Cooper Design Studio opened its new location 15 minutes from Vanessa and Paul's home. My team had relocated with me, drawn by lower living costs and the opportunity to build something special. For the first time in years, I was able to be present for ordinary moments with my sister's family. Tuesday night dinners, weekend trips to the beach, impromptu visits. I maintained my own space, my own life, but the proximity allowed for a deeper connection. 2 years after my relocation, I sat on Vanessa's patio, watching 8 children play. The original 5, plus Sophia, toddler Lily, and Paul and Vanessa's newest addition, 3-month-old William. "Remember when you moved out?" Vanessa asked. When I announced I was pregnant with Noah and tried to force you to be our full-time nanny? I nodded, smiling at the memory that no longer carried pain. I remember. I was so angry, so hurt. I was awful to you. We were both struggling in different ways. I watched as Tyler helped little Lily climb onto the swing. But look where we ended up. Vanessa followed my gaze, taking in her blended, beautiful family. Not where either of us expected, that's for sure, but exactly where we needed to be. In that moment, I felt the rightness of all the choices, all the struggles that had led us here. None of it had been easy. All of it had been worth it.